who's next? Yeah, who's next? Welcome to The Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. If you've been paying attention, C.L.I.M.B is an acronym that stands for creating leverage in the music business. See what we did there? See what we did? And you saw it. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Brent Baxter. Brent's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady Antebellum, Joe Nichols, and more. And listen, he's like Santa Claus. He helps songwriters like you turn pro by teaching the art, the craft, and the business of songwriting. And you can find him at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. It's an innovative artist development company. They help you find your sound, and they help you find your audience. Not only do they develop and improve your artistry, they also grow and monetize your fan base, creating cash flow. I'm just going to sit on that for a second. Just ponder cash flow. Yes. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production, singular, no S. Hey, Johnny, how's it going?
Good, brother. Hey, man, Merry Christmas coming up to you. We're getting close.
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad. I have a Christmas wish for you. I have a Christmas wish that your boys come back from China to be with your wonderful family sooner than later. I don't want this to go on anymore. That's my Christmas wish for you.
I can get behind that like 10,000% because we are ready to bring those boys home. So
you couldn't find a finer family. You've been fighting so hard for so long for these two boys, and someday they're gonna understand what that means. And dude, I mean, that is huge, you know. That is huge.
Don't get me all misty.
Well,
there's no crying in podcasts.
There's no crying in podcasts. Come on. Well, hey, we got some new stuff that we're going to talk about here with Brent. Is going to take the helm and drive us through some new songwriting knowledge.
That's right. This is going to be digging into some lyrics, some craft stuff. We're at the intersection of art and commerce is where we're going to hang out today, right?
Ooh, that's a touchy intersection.
It's wrecks happen, but beautiful things happen there too, right? What I want to talk about today is 5 ways that songwriters make their lyrics too old. Old. All right. So interesting. And what this is, you know, sometimes songwriters needlessly limit the pitchability of a song by making the song too old for most singers. Most artists sing young, meaning their songs are from a young point of view, no matter how old the singer really is, right? I mean, there are songs like, you know, I remember, you know, some Brooks and Dunn songs that, you know, those guys are like, what, in their 50s or something, and singing like they're, you know, in their just out of high school, like they got nothing to do on the weekend, right? And a lot of artists are that way. They sing young no matter kind of how old they really are. So there are some ways that songwriters kind of age their lyrics. And so keep in mind that none of these things are bad in and of themselves, okay? But they may limit who will sing your song, you know, commercially, right? So this isn't about good songs don't do this and good songs only do that. It's not about that. There are good songs and there are commercially viable songs. Sometimes they're the same thing, and sometimes they're different. Okay, so that is where I want to hang out. That's what I was talking about at the corner of art and commerce. So this is making your art where it's going to has a better chance of getting recorded and finding an artist that will say these things. Because basically, it's part of it's like a numbers game, right? There are more artists that will sing younger lyrics than there are artists that will sing older lyrics.
Right.
So I want you to, I talk about a lot as a bullseye. You know, how big is a bullseye? You know, some songs have a very small bullseye you're trying to hit. Others, a very big bullseye. It's easier to hit a big bullseye, right? Mm-hmm. So the choices we make in our song can make the bullseye bigger or smaller. And the more you kind of age your song up, it's making that bullseye smaller. Not that you can't hit the bullseye. There's less chance of it. So I'm trying to get you to get your songs in the best position to get cut. So,
right. So these are like a set of tools to put in your toolbox that may or may not be appropriate for a certain song. Like a set of tools might not be appropriate for a certain engine. What this tool may be, this tool might not be. But a set of good tools that you can use to try to make yourself the most commercially viable killer song that you can make. Right? Exactly.
And I want you to, kind of hang a lantern on these. So if you run into this in some of your own songs, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do I want to do this? Make sure I'm putting this in here on purpose, and then I'm prepared to deal with whatever the consequences might be.
Yeah.
So you make choices, and I want to draw your attention to some of these things. A lot of writers do it, and they don't realize, they don't think about the consequences of it. But I tell you, in the writers' rooms that I'm in, we think about this stuff. These little things that might fly by, you might not think about. We're thinking about every word and what it does.
They have weight.
How does this?
They have weight.
They have weight. Every word's in there for a reason, and there are a lot of words that you won't hear in my songs for a reason.
Yeah, for a good reason.
Stuff that doesn't make it on the page for the same for a reason. So, so I'm not telling you never to put these certain things in your songs. They may be a vital part of a great song. I just want to make sure that if you include these points in your songs, that they're there on purpose and with good reason.
Right.
All right. So I'm not telling you don't ever do this. And I'm not telling you to always do this. I just want to draw your attention so you can make an informed decision. You can make a professional level decision with it. All right.
Love it. Yep.
All right. So we got 5 things here. 5 ways songwriters make their lyrics too old. Number 1 is shacking up. All right. So, and so it's things like
that's going to make the blur real. Brent and Johnny talk about shacking up
on today's podcast. Shacking up. So, all right. So saying things like, baby, you came home, or you were moving out, that kind of stuff. Or I came home to you, you came home to me. You're cleaning out our closet, kind of stuff, right? All that stuff means a singer and their lover or ex-lover were living together or are living together. Okay, that's an adult situation. You're probably not talking about your roommate at boarding school.
Right. That's right.
You're talking about, it assumes a certain level of age, right? You're at least out of high school. You're on your own, old enough to be shacking up with some chick, right?
Right.
So, like I said, this isn't something that makes you a grandparent. It's just something that is an adult situation, but it's so easy. It's one of those things in songs that you will put in a song so easily without even thinking about it. I know it's so easy to, it's a way of telling the story of a she left me story or a breakup thing. Mm-hmm. Well, she left me. She got her stuff and she moved out, whatever. Well, do I really need to make it where she moved out? Is that integral to our story? Or is it just the fact that she broke my heart? Mm-hmm. And maybe I can leave it open. And, most artists will sing being of an age that, maybe living with somebody. But maybe some artists won't. It may not even be an age thing. It may just be a thing like, well, I don't want to talk about shacking up with somebody, because I'm married or I'm not married or whatever.
Right, certain artists are going to have a moral thing with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, how about this? Can I add something real quick? What about the listener? I mean, maybe the listener's totally old enough to shack up with somebody, but they would never never do that. But they've had their heart broken, so you don't want to take them out of the story just because they could relate to the experience that you had that really was really living with that person. If this is a real, even if this is a real situation, right? Like a real, what am I trying to say? Like it was a real description of what happened. Right. That's probably not mission critical to the story.
Right. That's the thing. You want to determine what's essential to my story and to the emotion, to the takeaway for the listener. And then, okay, do I include the shacking up, or is it just important that she's gone, that I miss her, that, I see her around town, blah, blah, blah. Because maybe an artist, a younger artist like like Scotty McCreery, a couple of years ago, a young guy came out, or Hunter Hayes, or some of these artists that are younger. Well, they're not going to sing about shacking up.
Yeah.
And if it's not important to your song, you could maybe take it out, or a female artist, I would assume maybe less likely to sing about, living with somebody. I haven't done the math on that, but it's a thought. But if it's not mission critical, like you said, for the song, well, maybe I just put some other line or idea in there. And that way, younger people, because, hey, man, heartbreak doesn't have an age on it, right?
That's right.
So that's just one thing to think about. Okay, so shacking up. Number 2 is working. Okay, have you noticed how like almost nobody in country music these days has a job?
I thought you were going to say that, dude. No, they all just seem to hang out at bonfires in the back of tailgates and the girls don't have any shoes. They just put their pretty little toes
no
up.
No wonder the poor girl didn't have any clothes on. She didn't have a job. She couldn't afford it.
That's so true. Nobody's got a job in country music world, in country music land.
But, you know, I mean, and there used to be like in, say, 90s country, like what I was, you know, when I really started writing, you know, songs and what kind of put its stamp on my writing, or at least, you know, my formative years as a writer. There'd be a lot more about, you know, my boss was a jerk and got off of work, and, you know, my boss wants me to put in overtime and I'm not because I'm coming home to you. There's a lot more of that. These days, ain't nobody got a job. I'm picking up my baby, but where am I coming from? I don't know. I'm coming from one river to pick her up and then go to the lake or something. They just don't talk about it. And like I said, not that you can't ever do it or whatever, but you just be aware it's like, oh, well, you know, statements like my boss is a jerk or I worked all week. It makes a stinger, at least out of high school or college kind of thing.
And puts it in, you know, one of my favorite, like, oh man, I mean, there's a bunch, but one of my favorite country music songs is Gary Allen's Right Where I Need to Be.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, there's a plane. There's a plane. Leaving out, and he's talking about his job and in juxtaposing his attention to his girl and how much he's losing that because he's got this demanding job and he's climbing the ladder and the boss says he's right where he needs to be, but he knows with her and that's where he needs to be, and that's a real work because guess what? Everybody really has a job. So you can't find a better way to connect with people than to talk about that to a degree. I mean, like, stop.
Right. I mean, that's, you know, and it talks about, you know, but it matters who is the artist audience. You know, is that who, because that hadn't been who like Taylor Swift has been talking to. That's you know, like especially early records and stuff, and other artists. You know, most artists in country right now, it seems like they're aiming younger. But yeah, that song was a while back, and like I said. And that song was a hit, so I'm not saying you can't ever do that, but realize that certain artists just aren't going to go there. When was the last time Florida Georgia Line talked about couldn't wait till I got off work?
That's a good point. Yeah.
I can't think of it. It's all kind of all the weekend stuff. Maybe you got a job, maybe you don't. I ain't talking about it. It's not relevant to what they're doing. There's a huge market in the party part of it, right? Isn't that what happened in the 80s with my stuff, with the 80s hair bands? I mean, it was all like, I don't think we ever talked about a job. Yeah. Pretty sure we never did that. Like, we sold the party. Hey, I just got off work. I don't want to think about it anymore.
That's what your escape. There you go. Work. I mean, it's escape, right?
And so just be aware that if you're talking about, especially first person songs, like I worked all week, my boss is a jerk, you know, then just realize that some artists aren't going to do that. It may be worth it to do that and put that in your song. It may be an integral part of your idea, but it may not be. And it may just be one little line in there that's not important. Maybe you just go from, I got off work and I'm coming to picking you up to basically just, you know, I put the rag top down, I'm coming to pick you up.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it makes the bullseye a little bit bigger. Yeah. And it's not changing the meaning of the song. Or, you know, I've changed some stuff in songs from worked all week to just like, you know, had a bad week. You know, or something like that, or some other way of putting it. Mm-hmm. You know, this week's been the windshield, not been the bug. Mm-hmm. That could be school, that could be work, it could be whatever. I had a bad week. I'm ready for the weekend. Yeah, great. Grows a bullseye a little bit. Not I had a bad week, you know, because my boss. So number one, shacking up is an adult kind of situation. Working is more of an adult, you know, situation. So you ready for number 3?
Yes, sir.
Drinking. All right. So if you're drinking,
that's allegedly. That's allegedly. You can't prove anything here tonight.
Exactly. Yeah. Not quite. But you know, if you're drinking on the riverside, you might just be like 17 or 18 or whatever. You know, if you're drinking at the bar, most likely you're 21, unless you use like a fake ID kind of thing. You know, so that puts somewhat of an age on it, especially depending on the situation where you're drinking. If you're at the bar, if you're at a restaurant having a glass of wine, and I said that's still young. It's only like 21, but at least think about it. There have been songs that I've written with guys that felt like a young, we were thinking like, okay, this could be a Scotty McQuarrie thing, or this could be, a younger male artist, or young I've written songs that could have been young female artists. And so the young male artist I've done one where we did a version with and without the alcohol in it, because the alcohol wasn't the point of the song.
Right.
So you can have one little line about, she's a whiskey in my Coke or whatever, to just, you change it to something else. She's a spring in my step kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you go, okay, good. Now we can have, we can pitch it to the more drinker guy, or we can pitch it to the younger guy that doesn't talk about it, or just the guy that just doesn't sing about drinking. Same thing with the female artist. Well, we could talk about it's a red wine, on the town with my girls, to it's just a night on the town with my girls, or it's going uptown with my girls. Right. That way, that could be the young girls, all grabbing an Uber and going down after, going out after prom or whatever, or it could be someone older going to the clubs, getting cocktails or whatever. And so we're just making those decisions on purpose. Just be aware, because maybe as artists trend younger, that will be more of a thing. That's probably more so in like country or whatever. But again, it's just about making sure that you do this on purpose. Yeah. If it's in there, it's on purpose, because many of these things may just be one line in a song. Sure. But that will be a trigger that will go, that's a little old for me. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not telling you never to put drinking in your song, but that's between you and your bartender. Make sure you do it on purpose. All right. Love it. All right. All right. Number 4 is kids cheering. Chilling. The chillin'. Right, exactly. All right. So, I have done a lot of mentoring sessions, a lot of coaching sessions. I had a lot of songs come across, my desk, and there'd be some that, somebody's playing me a song. It's a nice love song. I love you. You're the sunshine on my pillow in the morning, whatever, all this stuff, it's nice. And then they get to the bridge or something. And they're like, as I watch our kids grow up and move out, I just, blah, blah, blah. Whoa, like, move out? Yeah, it's just what's happening. Now we're retired. Singer has to be quite a bit older than most of them sing as, right? Older than most of their brand is. But the point of the song wasn't our kids, growing up and moving out or whatever. It was, the point is I love you. And I've told them, it's like, can you just put something else in there? Because if you want to get somebody else to record this, most of them aren't singing from a first person point of view about having kids that are. You're not going to hear Miranda Lambert cut that. Exactly. They don't want to sound older. By the way, I mean, okay, let's look at this on a couple different levels. Like, look at how much entertainers try to keep themselves young, right? They go through surgeries. I mean, good God. I mean, there's a couple old school country artists that, well, I'm not going to mention any names, but clearly they did too much surgery. It would not be a stretch to imagine who they are. That's exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I'm saying, like, why do they want to keep themselves younger? Because they're trying to keep relevant to a younger audience, and having them sing a lyric that makes them sound the opposite of that, like we're retired. Like, you may have that sentiment, but that's not what they're selling. And so you've got to brand. It doesn't matter if they really are old enough to have kids that are out of the house. Yeah. What's their brand? What are they selling? If it doesn't fit the brand, it's got to go. I want to bring up something else right here. Just an interesting statistic, but I think by the age of 31, most consumers have chosen their music. There's very little new music. Does it happen? Yes. Like, Adele's done this. Okay. There's some artists that have done this, but there's very little new debut artists, very little new music. And this is for the indie artists out there, right? That are listening to what Brent has to say to improve their own writing and stuff. Maybe it's not a professional thing, but there are very little new music out there that you learn after the age of 31. Like, you have
your jams by the time you're 31. That's the sonic fabric of your childhood and your life. And typically, I would guess that, and this is a guess, but that would coincide pretty closely with the average age that people have kids, that get into regular jobs, that get into regular work, and all of a sudden they're not out, in college. They're out of college. They're not single anymore. So all of a sudden the music and everything like that takes a back seat to, I've got a family. I'm working on this relationship. I'm listening
to freaking Barney.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that happens too.
That's what I'm listening to.
Barney.
And like the Wiggles.
Barney.
Hot potato. Yeah. I'm listening to that stuff. All right.
And those freaking Teletubbies scare the crap out of me like clowns, by the way. I hate those things.
And listen, my wife stays home with the kids. So, I mean, when I'm driving to work or whatever, yeah, I get to listen to what I want to listen to. My poor wife, she
just wants to have a conversation with somebody.
Her playlist has somebody switched her playlist. Because, I mean, it's been a lot of Barney, a lot of that, a lot of Matt Klein's funny kid songs, which is good because they're really good. But, she's moved over a lot more, and for other reasons too, but to Christian music, because that's something that's safe for the whole family.
There you go. But
it's, it's not what you're listening to before.
And so it changes, right? So my point is, like, this is a real, honest to God statistic in the industry. Why do you think that entertainers want to look so young? Because they want to reach the younger audience that are younger than 31. Why do the lyrics skew that way? Everything that Brent's telling you right now is about the biggest possible. If you're trying to win over an audience of people who are retired and empty nest syndrome, you're not going to find them. Like, it's so difficult to do that because they're not looking for new music, man. They got everything that they want, and they're just not in that lifestyle that introduces them to new music. So understand that that's the dynamic in the marketplace. Is that a generalization? Absolutely, but this is what he's saying. Okay. So
yeah, exactly. And artists just aren't selling that as much. And things may change. That's why you have to keep up with what's going on. But for the most part, especially be careful about the kids in the songs, because all of a sudden these young bucks that don't want to sing about having kids or whatever just aren't going to sing about it. Like Luke Bryan, how much has he talked about having kids in the house, right? I mean, Yeah. I mean, I think on his first album, he one song, "The Car in Front of Me," had something about like a wife and kids.
Right.
Other than that, he just didn't talk about it. He's married, right?
Now here's an interesting story, because not only is he married, but he also didn't he take on his sister's kids? Because I mean, so his family is very, very public, like in the news and in the press, and I mean, he's a real that dude's. Even love him or hate him, I mean, he's got a good heart, and he's been through some crazy stuff, man. Like, more than anybody should ever have to go through. God bless him. And so it's very clear that he has kids, and then he's got a family, and he's very happy and all that. But does he sing about it?
No, it's just not his brand.
Yeah.
So, we're just trying to get you to think about these things, and you might have a song like, this is about having kids and watching them grow up. Well, you know what? Okay, here's a little extra value bomb for you. If you want to do that, make it third person.
Yeah.
Where the singer is not the one having the kids that are growing up and moving out.
Genius.
The singer is telling you about somebody.
The good stuff. Kenny Chesney.
The good stuff. Kenny Chesney.
Yeah.
Live Like You're Dying. Tim McGraw is not the guy having cancer scare in his early 40s. Tim McGraw is telling you about the guy having a cancer scare in his early 40s. The guy who went skydiving.
It's a little twist. That's so good. That's so genius.
A little bit. And Craig Wiseman and Tim Nichols wrote Live Like You Were Dying, and they knew that we can't have the singer be the guy that has cancer and all this stuff, because it's going to confuse the fans. Like, when did Tim McGraw get cancer? I never even heard about that, Betty. Right. So Tim's in that song just enough. He's the guy getting the great advice and the wisdom from this guy that had this story. And so we're in for the story. He's just telling us the story.
Yeah.
And so most of it's like quoting the guy, but Tim's not that guy. So if you want to have some of the stuff in there, sometimes you may want to make a third person. That there are other ways around it to still serve up some of the stuff we want to talk about in a way that's more commercially marketable.
Yeah, okay? That's from the perspective of the guy who's going to be selling it, which is your artist that you want to cut the song.
Exactly. Like, oh, this is a story that will relate to my fans. How can I best serve up this story that I can serve it up and not confuse them? Or
because my fans got kids.
My fans got kids. My fans got life. It's great life lessons, great life story. This is so relevant. But how, who's going to be the one sharing this information?
Genius. Love it.
So, all right. So number 5. You ready for number 5? Take it.
I'm ready for number 5. Sorry.
All right. Number 5 is Old Love. Okay. So talking about how you've been together all these years. Maybe true for the songwriter and his wife. Maybe true for the artist and his wife, or the artist and her husband, or whatever. But it might not make sense for the 20-year-old singer who's trying to sell tickets to 18-year-old girls. Yeah, all these years. Just little things like that could be just like one line in a song that makes you go, all of a sudden this is older than I want to sing. And if the point of the song isn't all these years, you've just suddenly aged it up, maybe unnecessarily, and you may have hurt your chances to get it cut. But I'll tell you a story about this. Gather around, Chivin. Let Uncle Brent tell you a story. I just call myself Uncle. I'm older. Dang it. Okay. So, all right. I was writing with Ruthie Collins, artist on Curb Records. And I had this title that I brought in that I thought she would love, a title called Vintage. Because if you follow Ruthie on Instagram, any of that stuff, she is all about #vintage. She loves vintage, the clothing, farmhouse stuff, all that. So I'm like, here you go. Here's a song title that's on brand, right?
Winning, yeah.
Still on brand. It's perfect for her. But we're trying to figure out how to write this thing, right? So we like, okay, well, we want it to be a love song. I don't want to, write a song about vintage curtains and pillows or whatever, I don't want to do that. Right? So love song. Okay, how do we do this love song? And I want to do a whole episode on this coming up, but so bite-sized portion. We came upon, okay, let's, love story. First person is the most impactful. So it'd be great if it would be I love you, right? Versus he loves her, because I love you is a lot more impactful to the listener. Because the singer saying I love you, right? Versus he loves her. But how do we make the song vintage? The first thing you think about is our love is vintage, right? Our love is like old. Well, that's not working. Ruthie is young. She can't sing as an older singer because she's not.
Right.
And we're writing this for her as an artist, right? Well, and we also didn't want to do, their love is vintage. Singing about an older couple. It could work. It could make sense, but it's not as impactful.
Yeah.
There's layers. There's a distance there between the listener and the singer and the people they're telling you about. So it's like, no, if we make it first person, it'd be so much better. So how do we get around it? What we did, so instead of making like they've been together all these years, we twisted into, our love is brand new, but I want to love you till our love is vintage.
Ooh.
So we set up all this old stuff, like, grandma's chair, whatever, and the aunt's ring, and just different stuff, like these timeless things. They're vintage and timeless and priceless. And it's like, your kiss is brand new, but I want to love you till our love is vintage. I look forward to looking back on, these memories that we're making now when they're vintage. And so we found a way to make it relevant for a young singer and a young audience, but still get something that still be able to use that title in a way that made sense.
That's awesome.
Less tempo. So just don't quit at the first, because the first thing you think of is like, it's an old love. No, let's keep on grinding. Let's find the best thing. And apparently it worked well enough because it's on our EP on Curb Records. You can get it on iTunes.
There you go. Go and get that, man. That's worth it.
Yeah. So,
see, I love that because think about it. Here's another twist. Like when you talk about a perspective of I want to love you till our love is vintage, and it talks about the future, that is selling hope to certainly every female, right? Almost like an astoundingly huge percentage of the females, and an astoundingly small percentage of the males will get that too, because the males are still out wildcatting around at that age. You know what I mean? But that is like, they that's what you're like. They get that picture, and then you can paint all those. So for the older songwriters, Brent, right, who have all that wisdom that they want to impart in their songs, they, by just a couple twists in the lyric, they can speak from the heart. They can be relevant, right?
Yes.
But by making it future tense, the vintage, the old, watch the kids grow up, all that stuff, future tense, but just twisting it to sell to somebody who can sing it as a younger artist, man. I mean, that I think is what great advice is that for the older, people who are just, you know what? I work my 40 hours a week forever. I'm retired now. I'm gonna write songs because that's what I always wanted to do, and I want to write from the heart, and I want to be genuine. I really want to touch people. Well, you can still do that and make it young with just be aware of those little.
It's how you serve it up. So much is how you frame it, how you serve it up.
That's so
which
good,
we do.
Dude. That's so good.
You think about this stuff, okay? You think about it for a minute, all right? And and in that case, it worked. We were there's a lot. I mean, probably at least half the writing time was just talking about it and trying to wrap our heads around it, how to serve it up.
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of writing it, which it's not easy, but it's like we know how to write it. But the important thing is, what do we want to write?
Yeah.
What do we not want to write? It's those discussions. That's so much when the money's made, and then the rest of it's nuts and bolts.
Yeah. I mean, one more quick story. We're running a little long, but that third person thing was exactly what got the cut with my artist, Tandy Marie Harris, that you wrote with Hillary Scott from Lady Antebellum. And who was the third writer? I keep asking because I never met him.
Well, it's four writers on there. It was me and Casey Kessel and Hillary Scott and John Armstrong.
That's right. And so they had a song that was third part. So we have an artist that is from Canada, brand new mom, and of course she's responding to and wanting to emulate everything that was on the radio at the time, which was, by that time, the Carrie Underwood sort of angry ex-girlfriend thing had been played out even a little bit for Carrie. Like, she was already changing and moving forward. And so she was, but this was happening up in Canada, and she was talking about that. And we just asked her, like, is this, are you the drinking angry ex-girlfriend? You're like, you just had a baby and you're happily married. And she's like, oh God, no, you're right. I'm not that person. So I'm like, okay, so you can't sell that from the first person. That was the conversation that we had. But then you sent us something that satisfied the itch that she wanted to scratch, but she could sell it and not be that person because it was third person, right? So that third person thing, which is Woman Scorn, which was the song. And it was like she's telling the story of this couple and what happened. So that all of a sudden comes from it could come from a guide, right? Like you could be a wise guide in that thing. It could be anecdotal. It could be judgmental in the sense that you're laughing at it, or you're looking down on, or looking up to it, or
you're the one describing, the scene to the reporter who shows up. You're like, and then she came flying off that front porch.
And I said, "Oh Lord Jesus, there's a fire! Somebody's barbecuing or something."
The artist gets to be that person, just telling the story. And that one, it was a story about Candy came home. And caught Bo in bed with the redhead, basically. Yeah. She came home and her guy was somebody else, ended up being a Waffle House waitress. And, and hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. It was on. Yeah. And, it was aggressive, and it was hopefully funny and just entertainment, right? We wrote it for entertainment value and something to crank up loud. But the singer's not the girl that goes a little bit nuts.
That's right, and that worked well for her. She got spins. There we go. Like, you got paid for that up in Canada.
Hey, thank you very much.
You're welcome. But hey, guys, man, so that's good. So recap real quick, 1 through 5.
All right. Again, this is not telling you never to do it. I want you to be aware of it so you make an informed decision. So, okay, things that make your lyrics maybe too old. 1 is shacking up. 2 is getting a job and working. 3 is drinking. 4 is having kids and watching them grow up. And 5 is talking about old love.
There you go.
So be aware of them. Possible landmines. You just make your own decisions.
Awesome information, buddy. What else you got for us? You didn't stop at 5. You got something else.
Well, there's 5 of those, but then I got something else. I put together an hour of video teaching on finding great song ideas.
Hold on, stop right there. If you haven't figured it out and you're a regular listener of this podcast, this is brand new. Pay attention.
Right. Brand new, just now available. It's an hour, part of a web shop that I did with some other songwriters, but the whole hour talking about techniques that I use to repeatedly find strong ideas, strong song ideas. So this, and I'm not waiting for the magic to come, lightning bolt to hit me. I'm going out and I'm standing in the rain holding up a lightning rod. Okay, this is how I do that. So I go through several techniques and processes that I use to come up with song ideas again and again and again. So I'm sharing that with you. It's free. It's a free hour video coaching, basically, workshop.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? That is awesome. And there is a lightning rod URL.
Yes, it is findinggreatsongideas.com.
Repeat that again.
There we go. findinggreatsongideas.com. Go there. You just give me your email address, tell me where to send it. I'll send you a link for the video. And like I said, it's like an hour and 8 minutes or something of me giving you techniques to find great song ideas.
Man, findinggreatsongideas.com, and you get 1 free hour of hang time with hit songwriter Brent Baxter talking about how to write songs and get good ideas for songs. Are you kidding me? Like, what?
There we go.
What?
It's Christmas,
what is this,
baby.
Christmas? Are you Santa Claus? Are you going to put that beard white? Are you going to make that beard white? All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of The Climb. Thanks for hanging out. Once again, if you love it, sharing is caring. Let your friends know. Let your brethren know what you think about it. Leave a rating and a review on iTunes. And hit us back, man. info@daredevilproduction.com. Let us know what you think. If there's something you want us to cover that we haven't been covering, let us know. We want to know about you. We're grateful, and we're in the spirit of giving as always. It's Christmas time, but we're grateful for you guys listening and hanging out. And we keep breaking records on the downloads for us anyway. And Brent and I just absolutely are appreciative. So thank you very much. We want you to win, guys. So with that, keep on climbing.
We'll see you at the top.